So hello guys, today we are taking a new interview from Lamark BioTech, and he is the founder and the CEO. So let's just hop into the interview and just start this video. So sir, could you just please introduce yourself and your company, like what does your company do?
Okay, I will introduce myself. After that, you have to call me with my name. Okay?
Yeah.
So my name is Vellore, and I'm CEO and founder of Lamark BioTech. We are developing differentiated biopharmaceuticals. Biopharmaceuticals are pharmaceuticals which are derived from biological source like vaccines and many proteins like insulin, and these are life-saving medicines. But most of these are cold chain dependent. Means to transport them from one place to another, you require refrigeration. To store them, you require refrigeration. And a big chunk of the global population, they don't have access to electricity. Forget about refrigeration. And that's what we are making. We make cold chain independent biopharmaceuticals which can be transported and stored at room temperature. And the idea is to make sure that all these life-saving medicines are accessible in the deepest pockets of the globe, even if they don't have electricity.
So like, are you making those vaccines, like new vaccines, like if we take in like paracetamol is there, so it's like on room temperature, we don't have to refrigerate it.
Mm-hmm.
So you are making vaccines like if we take an example of COVID vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
so you are taking those vaccines and converting them to non-refrigerated like things, so that.
I mean, technically, it's a deep question, but yes, we work with biopharmaceuticals which are already clinically approved and are in the market, and we try to create formulations which are cold chain independent. We are also developing new biopharmaceuticals which are not there in the market, and instead of developing a cold chain dependent, we propose to go cold chain independent pharmaceutical formulations.
Okay. So who started all this? Like, who started the company?
Okay, so I was in Spain at that point of time, and this is my second company. My first company is called BioTech. It's a spin-off from University of Granada in south of Spain, and I joined that spin-off as a co-founder. And we were developing what you call live medicine for cancer patients, where you take cells out of the patient. These cells are immune cells. They are called T cells. For example, in this case, they fight with any pathogen coming inside. The same way, they also fight any unwanted cells like cancer cells inside. And you take these cells, you transform them genetically, and make these normal fighting cells into commandos, because they have got now better fighting capabilities. You multiply them and you reintroduce into the patient to fight the cancer. Okay. Now this is a medicine that costs around $500,000 per dose. A single injection costs around $500,000, including a lot of extra work there. So it's a cost of around $1 million for a patient to be treated with that.
$1 million.
€1 million, yeah, $1 million. They are very close now. And I was like, okay, that's cool. We are doing it, very good. But what can we do more? Because there are a lot of medicines, and I figured out insulin, which is a 100-year-old drug, is not accessible to majority of the population. Okay. Whenever there is accessible, there are a lot of troubles with its pricing and all those things, quality. And it's a 100-year-old drug. And we are like, okay, let's do something there. And I met these two co-founders of mine, which are Professor Gavira and Professor Luis and few of us. One come from NASA and another come from MIT. And they were working on a very interesting technology to stabilize proteins. And they were working with many enzymes. And that's the time we talked about this. And it's like, wow, that could be great if we can make protein stable, so stable that you don't require refrigeration. And we went ahead, they were doing some experiments, we went ahead with doing more experiments, did some animal experiments, and we went out to ask in Europe at that point of time to see if somebody requires cold chain independent, in biopharmaceuticals. And people are like, cold chain independent? We have cold chain everywhere, we have refrigerators in our pocket, we don't need cold chain independent. But that one time, IKP, Hyderabad, I got a call from one of my old friends, Vishu, and he said, why don't you come to India? I was like, yeah, I'm planning to be there. In 2019 I came and I met a lot of companies around, including GSK, BioTech, and every company I went, I was like, that could be great. If we can make cold chain independent vaccines, can we make cold chain independent? I was like, yeah, we can. And I was like, there was a pain point, which only people in developing nation like India can see, and that's where we said, let's go for it. So we saw the pain point, we had the technology.
So instead of joining those companies, you just started your own.
Well, I was always still since 2010 when I finished my PhD from IISc, I was always in an entrepreneurial mode. I always wanted to start something which is not being done by other players. What you realize is most of the time it's not just technology. A lot of times it's also the timing, the kind of financing it requires, because developing a drug may easily take 20 to 50 million and you don't get any money back, so you need to find people who can support that kind of development, the investors who can wait for that long. So all those things are required, and you need to bring a lot of things together in addition to technology. So I was always in that mode, and I realized that even these big companies, if they want to, it will be very difficult for them, because they are so big, they are not going to take all those risks that we can do. And that's why they depend on us. So we are a B2B business, B2B, B2C. We went to them, we said, okay, we will do it. And we tried, and we are successfully partnered also. The idea has been to see if we can develop something to acceptable stage and help them with the technology, and also in return create value for ourselves as well as for the world population.
So how did you came up with the name like Lamark? It's not a usual name that we often hear of. And what does it mean?
Lamarck actually is a contemporary of Darwin. Everybody knows Darwin.
Yeah, Darwin.
Yeah, same. Lamarck was a contemporary scientist for him. He's a French guy, and Lamarck was talking about inheritance of acquired characteristics. So as a person, when I live, I acquire some characteristics from the environment, and those characteristics I can transfer to my next generation. So he had a very famous example of giraffe. That lot of horses, they tried to jump and eat, and then some of them got their necks elongated. The same thing happened with the rat tail also. If you keep cutting the rat tail, the further generations will have smaller tails. Okay, so there are things like that. So Lamarck is now very relevant in terms of epigenetics. I don't want to get into details for this, but the other meaning of Lamarck, which is more fun, is in Spanish, Lamarck means the brand. The brand. And so I was like, yeah, because we were into technology development, we wanted to do something, where we believe that it is going to make change for our next generations, and we want to create a brand out of it. So in terms of pharma industry, but somewhere there it came out.
So is your company now in the development stage, or it is mature enough that it can deal with the customers? Are you product ready, or are you just developing all those things that were once an idea?
Yeah. I mean, it's a long development cycle for biopharmaceuticals. We initially thought it's going to be even longer, but thankfully we have found partners, we have found people who helped us in terms of business models and all. And instead of spending 15 years, we think we would be able to do it in 6 to 7 years. And that has happened, by interacting with a lot of experienced people. But still, it is 6-7 years of product development is not short.
After that you have to do human trials and all those stuff.
Yeah.
It's all pending.
Everything is on the way.
Okay. So what are all the drugs that you have been working on? Like insulin, as you told me. Are there many more? Or?
Yeah, we work on in 3 major areas now. One is insulin, as I mentioned. Other is we are working with intravitreal injections, where you try to reduce the angiogenesis happening at the back of the eye, and the disease is called AMD, age-related macular degeneration. And third is we are developing for an anti-cancer drug. It's a biotherapeutic derived from an existing molecule. The idea there is to make the delivery of this drug more safe with lesser side effects, and again cost effective.
Okay. So like you said, you had studied from IISc.
Yeah, I did my PhD from there.
So in what states did you did your bachelor's, and after that your PhD?
So my bachelor's was from Lucknow. I studied botany, zoology, chemistry, pure sciences, My master's was from Dehradun, and I studied biotechnology. It was a master's in biotech. After that, I joined my PhD. My PhD was in biochemistry department, and a lot of work was around protein biochemistry.
Okay. You have been to many places, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah.
Because I am also from Chandigarh and I have been to Dehradun many times.
Okay.
So how many people are there in your team right now? Like how many people are working as interns and how many are like doing their full-time jobs?
Means if you look at the total team which is working today is close to 9, and there are some advisors apart from that. So if collecting all of this, like more than a dozen people now, but equal amount of people, they still help us from other sides. So yeah.
So from the morning I have met many people. Okay, so what their focus is on, like building their teams. Like they have a team of 20 members and many have 30. Okay, so how do you choose your team? Like what all the qualities that you see like in your team? Like this has to be in my team, and like what are all the qualities that you see while taking the interview? I think so. You must be taking all the interviews.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and because we have scarcity of money, you have to be very cautious about hiring somebody. When we hire, especially in India, you hire thinking that the person may not know everything that you want them to know. So you have to be ready for giving them time to train themselves. Many times you don't train them, but they have to come up with, they have to adapt themselves to the industrial side, because many times people come from academic background, and being a startup, we try to make sure that there is a balance of experience on the other side. So I can't hire somebody whose cost to company could be 2 CR, because he will be 45, 50 and he could be experienced but have a lot of energy. So what I try to do is I try to balance a team where new people come up and there are people who are experienced. They may not be working all the time, but they learn their jobs slowly. And one thing that we always look for is if they believe in the project, because if they don't believe in the project, or there are many times people come and say, I'm coming here because I want to learn this. It's not the way to approach somebody who is making sure there's a startup is like a ship. You're making sure you go from one place to another. So you don't come in and say, I want to learn.
You just have all the essentials, not carry everything.
Learning is an, see, I am also here to learn. Okay, I'm in a startup and I'm learning. But that is not the focus. Only learning is not the focus. Learning is a part of your nature. If you don't have that nature, it's difficult. But what you look at is honesty. You look at how long we can go together, because over time only the team would be formed. Over time, it takes a lot of time for somebody to understand what's happening. It's a deep tech. Hard tech has this problem that you can't get ready-made people. You can't get somebody who has developed a thermostable insulin before. Okay, if there is somebody, then it's no point in doing it, right? So you are trying to do things which are hard tech and which are hard. So you try to figure out people who can stay there for long, learn, apply it, and are ready to grow with you.
And so how is VIT helping you with that?
VIT has helped in many ways. First of all, very good students around. The way VIT has trained, it has given. I have seen people coming from different education institutes, but here people come with space in their head. Okay, they are studying like you are taking this interview, because you get enough space, mind space to indulge in your studies, which is academic exercise. Plus, you can do other things also. So that way, I think this is very good environment for us to find new talents. On the other hand, also VIT has invested in us. Money is always good to get. And plus they provide facilities. They give access to labs which are already established labs. So, and a lot of faculties around here are very good, and young faculties who are coming in, who have been doing very amazing work, and we get benefited from it.
And if you wanted to go for valuation, like if you wanted to get investors on board and want to get some investment, like what valuation would you put on your company? Like,
you don't. It's not that what valuation you put. The valuation keeps changing. It's a very dynamic number. Idea when you go to investors at early stages, not just the valuation, it's also about who is coming in. Okay, imagine a person is coming in and he is providing some experience which is unmatchable. You don't worry about valuation.
So it's not always about the money.
It's not always about the money, but it is also about the money, but not only money. You have to look at other criteria as well.
Okay.
That's very important.
So like what's your company's growth like? Is it substantial or you are achieving your targets, your small goals? Are you able to achieve them or?
I mean, I would say we are not able to yet match the pace that we expected. The things, especially R&D requirements, like supply chain is slow. You take a lot of time to get something. In Europe, which is very fast, for example, comparing them. But on the other hand, business-wise, we have been able to do very well. We have been able to partner, been able to license new technologies, develop network throughout the globe now. We very proudly call ourselves global biotech, global startup, because we are dealing with multiple nations now, and that way it's good. I can't complain.
So what's the biggest risk that your company might face or is facing? Like it's the big companies that are pharmaceutical companies, or what's that biggest risk that you always fear of?
The biggest risk is for us generally in drug discovery as a general is clinical studies. Okay, you need to be open to the fact that if you are developing 10 drugs, 9 of them will not reach market. Okay, this is based on past records, so that's the kind of risk you work with. But we have opted for that. In addition to that, any risk? Yes, there are risks around developing right funds at the right time, finding right people, and being able to forge right compliance. Because as a startup, you don't have a lot of experienced people, and you can't easily source out legal things, or you can't get advice from the best. You just don't have like 50 lakhs to pay somebody and say, okay, all my legal is taken care. No, it doesn't happen. So you have to go through everything. So there are these small hurdles. I don't call them risks, but these are hurdles that you have, in addition to which are generally not there if you are running a non-deep tech company. Okay, so this is one. So you have to sustain for very long. Okay, with very little money. And thus very little money also means less resources in terms of business development, marketing, legal advice, regulatory advice, and you have to be ready to put those extra hours to take everything on you. Those kind of things. Founders have to work.
No, like you just said, like it takes 30 to 50 millions to develop a drug. So are you able to match those funds?
We are an early stage company. As I mentioned, we have been able to alter the business model, the development model of a pharmaceutical drug to some extent. Normally, there are two types of drugs that come into the market. One is a new drug, okay, which takes a lot of effort, lot of work has to be done. You can easily spend 100 million around that. And the others are called biosimilars, means they exist in the market, but you are copying it. What we have been able to do is, we have been able to develop a differentiated biosimilar, which will have its edge in the market, its unique selling point in the market. On the other hand, it will not have that kind of development cost as $100 million drug. And this way, we are able to forge in, because we are a very collaborative company, we are able to forge in collaborations, try to see how, and we are open to new collaborations, strategic alliance, try to see how we don't have to reinvent the wheel. What has already been done, we take it from there, put our key activity there, and get the product to market as fast as possible. But in our case, as fast means within 5 years or 7 years. It is also like that. But yeah, so it's not just about 30 million that you have to raise. It's about reaching the right people, to sometimes prevent that cost also.
Okay.
And
so what's that one word that defines your company? defines you or your company? Like, what would be that one word?
Very boring company. It is like that. Pharma development is a very boring and tiring job. Okay, you don't
have to take so many test subjects and do regular testing.
Exactly, and you fail a lot. Okay, you see animal experimentation happening, you see this happening. Still, you have to sustain. Okay, but we stand for if you are asking me from inside what I see in a pharma development, I see it's very boring. Development is a very boring process because for 5-7 years you are going to very small points and working on them. But this is how science for pharmaceutical development is. Because research scientists, they come and they're like, oh, let's try this today, let's try it. No. You have to follow a protocol. And you have to do this, you have to get it done, you have to do this 20 times.
Persistence is the goal to achieve that success in that pharmaceutical.
Absolutely. But what our company stands for, if you ask me what our company stands for in one word, we believe it is to be accessibility. Okay, we are here to make sure the life-saving medicines are accessible. It's not just about making a medicine. Okay, it's also about making sure that they reach the hand of the patient. Okay, that's what we are standing here for.
And how will you define your company in just one sentence to a 10-year-old boy? Like, how will you explain like what you are doing?
I generally tell them. With ice cream, I tell them that we are making ice cream that will never melt. That's how we tell it.
So, what would be that some learning? I am sure that you might be having day-to-day learning. You might be learning new stuff every day. So, what's that learning you would like to share to the young people who are about to start their entrepreneurial journey and about to start their startups?
I'm not the right person to say anything. But if I have to say, I would say, be open to learning, be open to advice from others. Because if you are a startup, you are there to do something that has not been done before. And if you are trying to do something that has not been done before, okay, you would be solving more or less like a jigsaw puzzle. You can't see it, nobody can see it in a complete picture. Nobody can see, okay, you can't see, little trouble. What you should be ready to is what you see may not be the right picture. So you have to take a lot of advice from other people to be able to correct that picture. Okay, and then you have to believe that after a lot of pivoting, a lot of adaptation, a lot of working it out on business, technical front, you will be able to reach somewhere close to that. Okay, that's how you should go. So listen to the advice of others. You don't know everything. Don't expect that.
So just be a good listener and just implement all those stuff.
Yeah, I would say that. Because there is this very famous Bharat Milap scene in Ramayana. And Bharat, when Ram wills that okay, Bharat has to take care of the kingdom for 14 years, Ram tells him, Bharat asks him, how am I gonna do this? I'm a kid. He said, no, you can do it. Just listen to the people, the committee, whatever is all the ministers in the cabinet work. Just listen to them and then do the job. Okay, that's how you have to do it. You have to listen to everybody else. And it doesn't matter they are 5 years old or they are 50. You have to listen to everybody else and then take a decision. But you have to be a good decision maker. You have to make that. That is something nobody can do for you.
So thank you for this interview.
My pleasure, man.